Chapter 26. William blankly stared at me. "Just like that?" he asked. I nodded. "Just like that," I said, smiling, still pleased with myself. It was such a kick-ass argument, one that had earned me my freedom. "But it's so simple," William said. I nodded again. "It is, and still it took me 5 years to see it. Existentialism, logic, a cool head, everything he had taught me. But that argument had nothing to do with logic or ethics. This had everything to do with control. It had to be with me picking myself up off the floor and fighting. I was under my half-brother's fist all over again. My father was rejecting me all over again. I was chained to Joe's bed all over again. This was me accepting rejection and standing against them all for the sake of me. Was the argument easy? Yes. Simple, in fact. Simple sense that took me 5 years to master. I took a moment and finished off my coffee before refreshing our cups. Richard and I started a relationship immediately after the verbal contract was breached by Scott on Christmas Day, I said, settling back into my chair. "But you weren't okay," William said. "I mean, you had sex at 15, were abused, raped, and sexually tortured, and you're walking into a new relationship?" "That's right," I said. "One of the dumbest mistakes of my life. But I didn't know I had a problem. I didn't know I had any issues. I thought I was normal. I was looking for the traditional marriage, the traditional family, with the traditional dream, despite never once having the traditional childhood to prepare me for that. I was a mental mutation, chased cookie-cutter dream designed only for the status quo. That decision, leaving a raping pedophile to enter a marriage, taught me one thing. Marriage made the rapes stop." The day that Scott read my journal and hit me came to be known as the Hosea incident. For 2 years, Scott brought up the Hosea incident. In every argument, it sounded like a disease coming from his mouth. When I lost Hosea, I turned inward where the pain festered. If there was one lesson I learned from losing Hosea, it's that life is too short to be fuck around. Be brave, be bold, be blunt. And I had every intention of being just that and nothing more. If I liked someone, I told them. If I admired someone, I told them. I held nothing back. I did that once, and I lost someone very precious to me. Never again. Mind you, I didn't throw myself at men, nor did I flaunt my condition, but if I saw someone who was attractive, I told them, "You look good," and it didn't matter if they were female or male, though the males did take my forwardness differently. I had learned to love smiling. I smiled, made eye contact. I was sincere. I still am. I had no qualms looking someone in the eye, smiling and saying, "Hi, I like you." It was my way of branding them friend. It's something I practice to this day. If I love someone, I waste no time in telling them. Life is too short. The men fell for me often and hard. If they made me laugh, I let them know it. If they made me smile, I told them. I held nothing back. Honesty, pure and simple. Genuine, sincere kindness and direct honesty. And I found living on my own made it so much easier to laugh out loud and smile. That is what I had become. Laughter. And I had a lot of crying to make up for. Richard fell for me like a Steinway piano on an Acme set. Like a breath of fresh air, I entered his life smiling and laughing. I looked right into him when he spoke, and I said exactly what came to my mind. And I dripped sex. Dancing had sculpted my body into an 80-pound solid mass of muscle, and the endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin fueled my permanent state of genuine happiness. Truth is, I was so relieved to be away from Scott that I couldn't help but smile. It became my habit, my M.O. I simply fell in love with smiling and laughter, and once I had reason enough to be happy, I couldn't stop. My breakdown on September 12th encouraged Richard to seek me out. What began as a kind follow-up turned into a warm friendship very quickly. He learned of my current living conditions and my pedophile. He learned that I was dancing on a diet that consisted primarily of coffee. He reminded me, if only briefly, of Hosea and I, still cursing myself for wasting that opportunity, wasting no time pursuing Richard. Once I was certain he would have me, I ran to him. By February 2002, he moved in with me. A month later, I was pregnant with our first daughter, Anne. Richard had seen and heard better than I what my male co-workers thought of me. In confidence, they disclosed every detail among themselves, away from the feminine ear. He listened to months of fantasies exchanged by more than a dozen males, detailing their desires with I as their subject. When Richard moved in, he immediately demanded I quit my job. I required a proper explanation, and he obliged. He relayed every detail back to me that was exchanged among the male populace. "You do something to them," he said. "You're like a drug." I was hurt. "I don't. You do it to me. It's like you're heroin. You are. You're heroin." I described a feeling that he had to take care of me, that he adored me and couldn't stay away. The following day I quit my job. Most of my marriage with Richard was uneventful. We spent the first few months enamored, and we dedicated a good portion of those first few months to learn about each other. He was determined to label Scott as a pedophile and encouraged me to do something about it. He wanted me to press charges, get in touch with law officials. I viewed Scott as an ex and believed my childhood and lifestyle were normal. I just wanted to forget. I told Richard about Hosea and how I had lost him. He would visit that topic often for the next 7 years. For me, there was no closure. Hosea didn't dump me. I just lost him and couldn't find him. I was still trying to reach Hosea. I told Richard this right up front, that I was looking for someone. Richard listened and supported and did his best to comfort me. He offered words to comfort me. He held me while I cried for Hosea. That was weird, crying in someone's arms. I don't do that well. Richard tried to tell me that Hosea dumped me and to move on. He tried to empathize, but without closure, I could not. Every few months or so, I would try all the numbers again and write to Hosea. I only ever received messages, machines, and mail marked return to sender. I missed our friendship. But most of all, I just wanted an answer to my why. Within those first few months, whether it was the dancing or my weight or my constant inability to eat, my system shut down, and I came down with dangerously high fever I could not bring down. I was septic and held a fever of 105 for nearly 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, I was exchanging full conversations with Eric and Angel. I popped some over-the-counter fever reducers and chugged water. My sweat smelled like sewage, and I lay there delusional. At the end of the 10 days, Richard decided to take me to the ER. We sat there while he lectured me about taking better care of myself. I was hooked up to an IV, immediately put on antibiotics for 24 hours, then was sent home with a prescription. 2 weeks later, we learned I was pregnant. Having a child was like someone had turned on a switch in my body. It whirled and awakened like a machine brought to life for the first time. Every inch of me was built for a reason, and all at once I saw its purpose. Nearly everything about the female body was designed to bear children. Just amazing. Richard and I were thrilled about my pregnancy. We went through the motions of excited new parents. I spent the pregnancy begging Richard to be in the room with me. He made it clear he wanted to wait in the hallway until Anne had arrived. At the end, my begging had prevailed. I had a C-section, and Richard stood in the OR with me. I was adamant to start breastfeeding as soon as I awakened from surgery. I had no idea what I was doing and screwed up on the latch. Anne was frustrated. Her mouth was small, and I was drugged on morphine. I tried again, dulled to the pain, signals sent to my brain that told me there was a problem. By the time I'd realized there was a problem, the incorrect latch had begun to sever my nipple from my breast. The lactation consultant corrected the problem and taught me, but the damage was done. For the 8 weeks, breastfeeding on that side felt like a small blade was sawing through my nipple. The pang was excruciating, and the option of pain meds was almost non-existent. 3 days later, I walked in the front door with my Anne. I had a prescription, but no time to fill it, and I was in no condition to drive. The meds gave to me at the hospital had nearly run their course, and I was feeling the pang of my C-section and my partially severed nipple. Richard drove Anne and I home, helped me upstairs, kissed me goodbye, and left for work. The phone rang. Still holding Anne, I answered it. "Hello?" I managed to scrape out. I was exhausted. "Hello, Elizabeth?" I sighed. It was Scott. "What do you want?" "I just felt it only fair to warn you. I filed some paperwork reflecting the books and lessons I gave you as gifts, which means you're going to want to speak to an attorney about tax laws because you'll have to pay the taxes on everything. Thought you should—" "I just got home from the hospital," I said. "I just had surgery. I don't give a damn what you do." I listened to his stupid stuttering. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I'm sorry." Click. I grinned, filled that he hung up on his own accord. It felt good not giving a damn what he thought. 30 minutes later, the meds had fully worn off. An hour after that, I was incapable of picking up Anne. 30 minutes after that, I was unable to walk or stand or move as the pain burrowed its way through my body. With every step, I felt the stitches pull at my cut. My breast burned as if I suffered from mutilation, and it was only 10 o'clock. I had another 7 hours to go before Richard would come home, and I could send him meds. And I could send him for meds. Needless to say, when he walked through the door at the end of the day, I fell apart.